a field trip to Bajor, a Deep Space Nine custody battle, and finally, the return of Garak. Welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton. My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine Season 2, Episode 5, called Cardassians. So Garak better join us for this one. How you doing, Cirroc?
I'm good, man. That was a good episode, I thought.
Yeah. Directed by Cliff Bole, by the way.
Cliff Bole. Yeah, I don't remember much of Cliff Bole. Sorry, Cliff. But then again, I wasn't in this episode either, so I didn't get any. He
doesn't remember you then either.
He doesn't remember me either. Which is one of the critiques I have. I felt like I should have been in this episode. It felt like Sisko would have had like a moment to have a conversation with his son about, just the appreciation of fatherhood or whatever it was that he wanted to talk about. I felt like there was a moment that they missed there.
Who better to talk to a kid than another kid?
Exactly.
I mean, they had Molly. What's this 16-year-old kid going to do playing with a toddler? He's like, oh yeah, he's been playing with Molly all day. I was like, she's fucking 4.
She's like 3 or 4, right? She's like 4 years old.
Yeah.
Playing with her or babysitting her. Yeah, that was kind of interesting that they said that too. They played it over into the Keiko O'Brien household, and they made it more about that. Instead, they could have, I thought, and they missed the opportunity to have Jake involved and have the Sisko Jake conversations kind of emerge out of it. But nonetheless, they did do a good job tackling the issue about adoption and raising a kid, parenting, and a lot of these issues got brought up in this episode, which I thought were good.
It was a very racially charged episode. Like there was a lot of like, just kind of like Duet was last season. Right. It was about racism. It was about not just that the Bajorans raised this Cardassian boy to hate his own people, but on top of that, it really, I mean, I've been saying this since the beginning. I don't think people realize, but Miles O'Brien, for how much we love him, they made him a racist against Cardassians. Like he was always like, these damn Cardies, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And which was interesting because in the scene they had him face to face with the boy, and he's like, "Hey, what do you think about the Cardassians?" And he's like, well, And I just was they should have flashed all the times that he was speaking about the Cardassians in the past episodes. A montage. Like, let me think. What do I think about him?
Or as Aaron would call it, a Hugh montage.
Hugh montage. Yeah, I thought that would have been great, man. I think that, they touched on all of those issues, like you said, with race being one of the main factors. And, how do you raise a child and what do you teach a child? There was one line in which the Bajoran father of the boy said to Garak and Bashir, "I'm not going to apologize for telling him the truth." I think he told that to Sisko. He says, "I'm not apologizing for telling him the truth." And that was kind of a poignant line for me because, they were asking him, "What did you tell this boy? What did you tell him?" To make him dislike Cardassians. And he's like, "I just told him the truth, what they really did to us." And that's kind of an interesting thing in itself, telling the truth. When do you tell the truth? Is it appropriate? And how and where?
And also the truth is extremely subjective.
Whose truth is, right? Is that what you mean?
It's kind of like if you watch these true crime dramas or anything like that, like the real documentaries, like you'll notice both parties, the defendant and the whatever it is, the accuser, they're both pretty much saying the same thing that happened, but just from their own point of view is a little bit different. They say, "Yeah, of course I did that, because she was acting like this." And she's saying, "Well, of course I did that because he was acting like that, And as Garak said, which was really important, he mentions that at the very, very end. He says something to the effect of, I don't usually tell the truth because, the truth is subjective. Let me see if I wrote that exact quote down.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was popping up, is the truth. And I thought that Siddig did a great job. I think this was his best performance thus far, in my period, estimation. I felt like his performance was really good. He played his soul nuances in a way that was very believable. I like the interchange between him and Sisko and Ops when he interrupts Sisko to talk to Gul Dukat. And those looks were just amazing.
They gave Sisko some comedy in there, man.
They did. They did. Yeah,
that was really
good. They gave him some comedy. Exactly. He said, "No, this is the highlight of my day."
That was the best line.
But don't make sure it doesn't happen again.
I was saving that for a little later, but let's see. He says, he's wow, what did he say? Oh, he goes, "Don't apologize. It's been the highlight of my day."
Yeah,
like he's the highlight. Sarcastic.
He's so sarcastic. Yeah.
He made another sarcastic quip when Bashir shows up to his place at 2 a.m, and he's like, "Oh, hey, sorry to wake you up, but I just need to go and borrow a car real quick."
I need to run about. I need to run about. Yeah.
To go to Bajor with Garak real quick, and Sisko says, "Of course. Will one be enough?"
Yeah. Will one be enough? Is there anything else I could do for you?
That reminded me of for those of you that have watched Friday, the awesome '90s comedy with Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. And it's like that girl, Felicia, where the whole "Bye Felicia" thing came from. They're like, he's like, Chris is like, "What do you want anyway, man?" And she says, "Oh, I need to borrow your car right quick."
Oh yeah.
By the way, I just borrow a runabout, no big deal.
Yeah, I just need to run about real quick. No, I thought there was another moment there, just a slight moment, but Bashir comes and interrupts the adjudication that Sisko is doing for the kid, and Gul Dukat looks over at Sisko and he says, "It appears you lost control."
Yeah,
and he looks back and says, "Yeah, it does appear I lost control."
Yeah, he does. He goes, Dukat says, I quoted that one too. He says, "This is irrelevant and insulting. Commander, you have lost control here." And
yeah,
like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
whatever.
Which is another like subtle element of Sisko's leadership style that I really enjoy. There are moments where he takes the back seat and he allows other characters to get their shine on, if you will, and that just shows to me a kind of leadership that I like personally, where it's not a leadership style where somebody knows everything and they shut you down and don't allow other people's input. It's the kind of leadership style where it's like, yeah, okay, I have the ability to do that, but I'm going to withhold that because I believe that you have something to, of value to add to this discussion. And that's what Sisko to me does a really good job of, really balancing the hard with the soft.
Yeah. And there's a real confidence in a true leader being able to say, "Yeah, I messed up," or "Yeah, I might be wrong," or "Yeah, I lost control," rather than somebody that's insecure and will never admit,
"I haven't lost control. I'm in control of this whole
thing.
You
lost control.
You lost control, and you're out of order." Yeah.
No, it's a great quality in a leader. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. And so I thought everybody, played those elements really well. I also have to put another shout out to Gul Dukat, who just does this really, it's just, he oozes this menacing asshole that you just want to punch in his face, right?
Yeah.
And he's
asshole, yeah.
Yeah, but he's also like really good and confident, and his leadership is also not questioned. His authority is not something that you question. It's something that you can see, and you're like, okay, this guy is clearly the boss here, and he doesn't give ground, but he sometimes will, acquiesce.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't make him any less tough.
Yeah, but he's so deliciously slimy. Like he
He,
just,
yeah, you love to hate him. He's a guy that
yeah,
you love to hate, which makes him just such a superb actor because that's what we're supposed to be feeling when we see him. So he's getting the job done like tremendously well. I thought it was funny when he turned around and walked out of the whole thing. He's like,
and he
"All
gave
right."
Garak a look, a
He gave
hard
Garak
look,
the long, hard look. They looked at each other. I thought he was going to swing on him almost. It was like one of those moves.
and Garak's just
Uh,
like,
hmm,
smiley
got
face.
you. I won. I won.
Garak's like, I haven't said a word. He's like, all I did was listen to Bashir connect the dots, in his mind.
Yeah, and we also get to see Garak as being this um, really smart person. You know, when he breaks into the computer system to look up the database to find out, which children have been there and to find the name of this kid. He shows a really high level of intelligence while he's
Mm-hmm.
going through that process. He's very competent in that way, and he's also endearing. You kind of like, oh man, I like this guy. He looks like the bad guy, but he's doing the right things, and
Yeah.
it's you know,
And the thing is with Andy Robinson and Mark Alimo, like Cardassians are so rich of characters for good acting. You know what I mean? And I
mhm.
find myself being mesmerized with being captivated by like every line they say. Every line they say as an actor, I watch it and I go, oh, that was such an interesting way to say that. Like even if the line's just two words like, oh yes, they'll be like, oh yes, or something like that. I've noticed Bashir also does that, more so in later years. Sometimes you only have two words. Sometimes Bashir's line is yes, sir, but he has to like do something with that. So if he's annoyed, he goes, yes, sir, or something like that. It's like
Yeah,
you're doing something with those two lines. And that's what
yeah,
these Cardassian actors do so well is they
yeah.
really chew it up. They really do a lot with a little.
Yeah, and I thought the father of this Cardassian kid who guest starred on this episode did a really great job as a guest star. Once again, we have such a high level of quality when it comes to our guest stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're always finding ourselves mesmerized by the performances of this guy that's a one-day player, or maybe just there for the week,
Totally.
and you might not see them again, but yet they leave these great performances behind, and it allows all the other actors to kind of shine in different ways. Um, but
I
yeah,
noticed.
the father was great, I thought.
I noticed, by the way, a little nod to our boy Aron Eisenberg there was something that reminded me of him, and I was like, okay, this Cardassian kid is supposed to be 12 years old. It's obviously a short 25-year-old. It's like it's a short. They're like, hey, it worked for Nog. We got to just if you got
But
enough.
he's got enough makeup on. Yeah, you could.
Exactly, it could be a 30-year-old dude with
Yeah,
kids. What do
yeah.
we care?
Another person that I thought would be well placed in this episode,
Yeah,
Nog, because
Jake
once
and
again,
Nog.
it felt like it was our age demographic
How great
that they
would it
were
have
dealing
been?
with.
How great would it have been if Jake and Nog meet this Cardassian kid, and the Cardassian kid kind of tells them the situation, and they're like, "Oh, that's weird," and he leaves, and Jake and Nog are on opposite sides of that fence.
Right.
We're like Nog is saying, "Well, no,
He should
Cardassians are
stay. Yeah,
bad," or something like
yeah.
that,
He
and you're
should stay
saying,
with his new parents, and I'm saying, well, but that's his father, and
"Yes,
and
exactly."
that would have been a great little exchange. And
Ah,
like I
so
said,
good.
you have an age demographic that's relative to the kids on the show. So you would think that the younger kids on the show would have an access and opportunity to be involved in the storyline, and that's what I
Mhm.
felt like was one of the big elements missing. And even when they brought it to the O'Briens, Molly wasn't even featured, so you didn't even see her. It was
Yeah, we didn't
just
see.
no,
Did we
it
even see
was
her at
just
all?
talked about it through
Yeah.
exposition. So they just talked, and today they were over there playing. So we didn't even get that, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity to do something like that. The other thing that actually jumped out at me, which I thought went unanswered in this episode, was the kids that they found at the orphanage on Bajor. When they found those kids and they
Mhm.
came out and they were like, "Are you here to take us?" I felt so bad for those kids. And then they just let it go. They're like, all right, no, we're not here for you guys.
It's just another Kaiopaka moment of like, well, what happened to those kids? And they're like, you fill in the blank.
Figure it out. Yeah, something like that.
They lived happily ever after, or they all got slaughtered somewhere in the middle, whatever.
Something. I thought they would give us something that would just say, hey, all right, well, then we need to go back to that camp and get all the kids and clear this mess up, because this has been going on too long or whatever. And, something to that effect I thought was going to happen.
You're right. That's just like 2 lines at the end of the episode. Sisko could say, and I understand that there are a lot of children, or Bashir says, Commander, before we go, I just want to let you know that blah, 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 blah.
We saw other kids there, and we need to find out who they are.
Yeah, and
who their
Sisko
parents
says,
are.
See to it that they're given options to something. And then we go, closed book.
Yeah, any objections, Dukat? No. And he walks out.
Dukat would say something like, even if I did have objections, would you listen? And the door's already closing on him. Like
exactly. And that would now check off that box for me of like, poor kids just come out of the thing, and you don't just turn your back and say, all right, well, too bad for you guys. We're only here for the one kid that we got. And all you guys got to deal with it. Some of those kids looked younger than 8, and they were talking about an 8-year time span. So it was like, well, where did these other kids come from, right?
Yeah, or maybe they could have just closed it when they say, "Are you coming to save us?" or something like that. And Garak
we'll be back.
And Garak says, "Are you the son of somebody important?" No. Then why are you talking to me about this?
Then I would have laughed, and it would have been hilarious. And then once again, the mark gets checked off. So I like the way you put a spin on that. Are you the son of somebody important? No.
And of course, Bashir says something like, "You're a jerk," and Garak says, "Thank you, my dear doctor."
Just plain simple Garak. Yeah, they do elongate their lines, and there's a certain way in which the Cardassians speak in this kind of rhythmic way. The melody of it is really intriguing. It draws you in, and it's interesting because it is kind of almost all the Cardassians that I see guest starring, and that's also because they're great actors. So I don't want to take anything away from that and just, put it on the makeup. These are great actors, but there's a way in which they talk, and it's so inviting and it's so grand and dramatic,
if somebody had never seen a Cardassian, but somehow had seen all the episodes with all the other aliens, and they said, "What are Cardassians like?" I'd say they're cunning and sinister like Romulans, but with the eloquence of the Vorta.
Yeah, with the eloquence of the Vorta.
The way they kind of deliver things in this grandiose fashion and kind of halfway say something, and you can't really take them on their word,
Yeah, it's it's like a closing argument for a good lawyer, But there's also another alien that was featured in this episode, the Dabo playing
Hellboy.
Yeah.
I was like, is that Hellboy?
What was that? What was going on with his head? And how come he wasn't, do you know anything more about him, Ryan? Because
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. The answer is no. But I did, because I was like, wow, that guy looks a lot like Hellboy. Like even the actor kind of did, but the fact that he had like those bumps on his head, like the butt head.
Yeah.
But I did look it up because I wanted to know at least what the alien was called. And we will answer that question right after the break. So we'll be right back with
what a tease.
Cirroc is pissed because we take like 4 hours in between.
What a tease.
We'll be right back with the 7th rule. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the 7th rule with Cirroc Lofton. My name is Ryan T. Husk. We are reviewing episode 2.5, that's season 2, episode 5 of Deep Space Nine, called Cardassians, directed by Cliff Bole, written by a whole host of guys. And we were talking about that Hellboy looking at.
Yeah, you left us hanging. You were going to give us some really juicy details. Tell us about this guy.
Well, his name, the character name is Zolan, and it's played by an actor called Dion Anderson. So I looked him up on Memory Alpha, which is kind of like the Wikipedia page for everything Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I want to know specifically what the species was. And it says the species is called, quote, Zolan's species.
So his name and the species are synonymous?
Well, they obviously they don't have a name for him, so they just call it, it's Zolan's species, kind of like how everybody's calling that baby on the new Star Wars series, The Mandalorian, they're calling him Baby Yoda because we don't know what Yoda's species is.
Oh, okay. All right.
So they just say Zolan was a humanoid businessman who accused a Bajoran of mistreating a Cardassian orphan.
Humanoid?
Yeah, as in like has the body shape of a human, but with forehead stuff like all the others.
Yeah, he had the really nice forehead, and the crown of his head had this like really abrasive looking thing on it, almost like an armadillo. It's kind of weird. A porcupine. Something was up there, and it was an interesting look on him. Plus, he had this jacket that was really decorated. It looked kind of unusual. I hadn't seen anything like it before since.
Well, here's something interesting. It also says that this alien is the same species as a character called Okalor from Deep Space Nine's season 3 episode, The Abandoned. So we do see the same species later on next season, but still without a name for the species.
Okay.
Boy, oh boy,
so this guy, whoever this species is, he's rolling with Bajorans who adopt Cardassians.
Ooh, this guy.
This guy, the mystery and intrigue. Yeah, no, I thought he was interesting, and I thought it was funny. The moment where he was taking all of Quark's gold pressed latinum was hilarious. There's nothing like the sound of a streak that's ongoing or something like that.
He kept saying Dabo.
Yeah.
So going back a little bit towards the beginning, I did want to say that it was really cool to see, Garak back with Bashir, having lunch again, because we know in later seasons we see that a lot. They're like lunch buddies, and so it's cool to finally see that again. And then you're like, yes, it's a Garak episode.
No, I was happy about that, but then I thought it was a little bit odd because you see Bashir sleeping in his bed, and all of a sudden Garak is like standing over him in his bed while he's in his pajamas, and I'm thinking, they don't have locks at
He broke in.
But he broke into.
He's Obsidian Order.
They don't have phones. Like, hey, you can just call me instead of just rolling up on me while I'm laid up in my bed.
Well, the other did the same. He just knocked on Sisko's door too, rather than calling him.
Yeah, he did. And I thought the funny thing about that was they were both in their pajamas, so we get to see the Star Trek pajamas. I don't remember seeing Star Trek pajamas before, and now this is my first
pajamas. That reminds me. There was another line that Sisko said that was really funny when after he said, don't apologize, it's been the highlight of my day. He says, what did he say? There it is. He says, so you deduced that Garak thinks that Dukat is lying about something you're not sure of. That's what he said right before he said, don't apologize. And sorry.
Yeah. I like that line. And that's why I liked Bashir's performance in this episode, because he was true to some of his, quirks, a little bit of his goofiness, but he was also observant and realistic about it.
Speaking of quirks, sounds like I think that was a week off for Quark and for Kira, and all we heard was Odo's voice. I don't even know if we saw it. So,
well, we saw Quark for one scene when in the
you're right. When they're doing
in the Dabo Girl section, but we didn't see Odo.
We heard his voice once or twice,
and I think Kira gave one look over to she gave a look over to Bashir when he walked in and came up with some great idea.
So her one call time that week was Tuesday at 2:30, basically.
Exactly, and she was there for 2 hours.
Yeah,
and
she was
left.
home at 5.
And there's her whole episode, which is great because sometimes you need a break. And she's also been featured a lot so far in almost the first season and the beginning of the second. So she probably deserved this break.
I will say too, my favorite line of the episode, definitely the funniest to me, was when they're down after they're doing their field trip, or when they're doing their field trip on Bajor, and they're downloading files or they're whatever. And Bashir, you could tell this was done in the 90s, because Bashir says, but that'll be thousands of files. Like, oh, that's thousands of files. And then Garak goes, tens of thousands of files. Now, meanwhile, we can download 1 million files in like 20 minutes or something nowadays.
Right.
But like in the future, it's like, what? Tens of thousands
of files? Yeah.
Wow.
You know what I also enjoyed was the banter, the little interaction between the Bajoran school teacher or adoption worker lady that was on the planet and Garak. They had this back and forth where she was kind of poking at him a little bit, saying, thanks to the Cardassians who left us here like this and this. And he would come back with his own like really light brevity and just respond in his own way, almost a little bit aloof to it, not really paying it attention, letting it hit him too hard. So I thought that was good interaction between the two of them.
Yeah, he's always so sarcastic. Like he's kind of like the other end of the spectrum of Cardassians from Dukat. Dukat, they're very similar in that they never say what they're thinking. They're very similar in that they're always lying. They're very similar in that they're kind of wordsmiths. They're never on the nose about it.
Yeah.
But Dukat is more sinister and evil about it, and Garak is more just kind of trying to stay out of it. He's trying to stay out of it, but he's kind of like dropping little hints here and there to help out, but also to help himself. And so they're just kind of like opposite ends of the.
Now, had it been established before that they had this disdain for each other? Because I might have missed that.
I don't think so, because this is only Garak's second episode.
Yeah.
He's only been in one previous episode, and I don't believe I think they just introduced him. He just said, oh, I'm just a simple tailor, that happens to be a spy, maybe a spy.
Yeah. So this is the first time they show us an interaction between Dukat and Garak, and we get to see that tension play out between them. It's kind of like I one up you, and you're not going to outsmart me.
And just the fact that Dukat even knows who Garak is already puts Garak on a completely different plane than what we thought. He's just a simple tailor that might also be a spy, but now one of the highest guys in Cardassian military also happens to know him and possibly have a rivalry with him, puts him at a way higher level, also makes him more of a likable character if your enemy hates this other character,
Right. Their stare down was great as Dukat's leaving. It was just like that great moment between the two of them. And, I got a chance to work alongside Andy Robinson and get to know him a lot better on this convention, what we did in London. It wasn't London, it was Birmingham. But we got a chance to sit next to each other. I saw him signing posters of, I think, Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
And with Clint Eastwood, yeah. And so
Harry
there was...
Balls.
Yeah, so I thought, no, not that.
But I didn't know if you.
No, the movie.
Oh.
But he got, he's a really fine guy. He's a really talented actor. I enjoy talking with him. I enjoy our conversations. He's just so knowledgeable. He's so distinguished, and he's a really class act. So, it makes me root for the character even more, as I have gotten to know Andrew Robinson as a person.
Yeah, he's got a very long and accomplished career. You know, a lot of people, you know, Star Trek was kind of like their coming out party, but people like Andy Robinson, you know, they've been out and about, you know, in this
Yeah.
industry for decades before that.
Yeah.
And Dirty Harry being one of the big ones. I believe he played a villain in that, right? I
He
mean,
did. He played the main villain, if I'm not
mhm.
mistaken. So he was signing a poster of the movie, and it was actually a Japanese poster. And I was just thinking to myself, "Wow, I didn't know I was sitting next to a legend. I didn't realize that you were this amazing guy before it."
Hmm.
And it's just really a testament to the level of quality of actors that we had. I mean, Paul Amini, for example, has been in so many movies that I've watched.
Con Air.
Yeah, Con Air, and
Mhm.
I think a bunch of movies back in the Steven Seagal days, and the old school movies that I like.
Mhm.
So, so yeah, it's just fun watching the politics play out on Deep Space Nine. We heard Tarek Noir, which is, I guess,
Deep
you
Space
know,
Nine. Yeah.
Deep Space Nine, right? So I thought that was there's a lot of interplay coming out of these episodes. This particular episode I thought was one of the better episodes. I did, however, feel a little bit bad for the kid who was rolling out with his
Yeah.
biological father.
It was a little surprising where they're like, "Oh, you hate Cardassians? Well, sorry. There you go. Go.
Yeah.
You're now with them forever. And oh, you love your parents. You're adopted. Oh, that's so sweet. You're never gonna see them again, though.
Say
Sorry.
goodbye.
Yeah, sorry. Bye.
Now you're gonna go back to the place where you hate, where you've been taught to
Yeah.
hate.
Anyway,
So
go ahead and leave our station because we're gonna go back to normal for next week.
exactly. So I thought that was a little bit. I mean, it just was tough to swallow. Obviously, you have to pick one or the other, right? So that the same kind of feelings would be kind of transposed to the father, the biological father, if he was the one that was left out and
Yeah.
getting a chance. But I guess the logic that Cisco used was that he was the victim, that the real victim in all of this was the biological father, which was a good logic to use,
Well, and the son was also the truest victim because
Right,
son's got nothing to do with it at all.
right,
And hopefully the kid's young enough, if this were real, the kid's young enough to be able to grow through his prejudices and kind of get re-educated that his biological parents were good and his adopted parents were good. Which also brings us to a really good moment between him and Miles O'Brien, because we've joked before that Miles is like a total racist because he totally is, and O'Brien was forced to kind of face that when he's talking with the kid. And they had that cute moment where they both don't want to taste the Cardassian food. Keiko makes the Cardassian food, and they both push their plates out, and then they kind of share this little moment where they're like, "Oh, we
yeah.
both hate Cardassians."
Yeah, I thought that was a nice little subtle play. I was also wondering what was inside of that food that they were eating because it looked like a clam chowder gone bad.
Mm.
So I was wondering to myself, what did they make for them to eat? What was in that little concoction?
That's
But
always something we always wonder is when you see people eating something that looks gross, you wonder what actual real food that doesn't taste gross are they using for this?
yeah, exactly, because it's got to be something. Um, and so you watch that thing and you watch him eat it, and it's just like the faces O'Brien makes are hilarious. And that little moment of mutual disgust for it was also, um, as you pointed out, something that was a nice little bonding moment between the two of them. But yeah, it's funny. I couldn't stop thinking about Aaron when I was watching
Mm.
the kid. For some reason, I just kept thinking about Aaron. You talked about it earlier, but there was something about this kid's energy that reminded me of Aaron.
Mhm.
He gave strong performances, I thought, and he had an intensity in his eyes. I think maybe it was the intensity in his eyes because Aron really communicates well with his eyes.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to under all those prosthetics. Yeah.
Right.
It's all about your voice, your body movements, and your eyes.
In your eyes, yeah. And I thought this kid also was, one of the kids that, I mean, his eyes were believable. He sold me on his emotions and how he felt uncomfortable. I completely bought that.
Yeah, and like I said, the similarity there for me was that it seemed like it was an adult that was short and was trying to make an acting career, and they said, "Well, can you play, a 12-year-old alien?" And he was able to do it convincingly. I mean, with enough makeup, you can't really tell that it's an adult, and maybe he wasn't, but I think he was. But he was able to pick up like the mannerisms and the innocence of a child, and actually act like a child, which was great.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was great. It was just also a little bit out of his character, though, to go and bite the guy's hand when he bit Garak's head. Is a little bit far fetched. Maybe he could have done something else. Maybe thrown his drink on him or something a little bit less.
I'm looking him up. I'm looking him up right now. Vidal Peterson is his name, and he was born November 6th, 1968. So yeah, he was 24 or 25 when
at that time.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Playing a teenager, right?
About a 12-year-old, because I think they said he was 4 when he was orphaned, and he was gone missing for 8 years. So that was supposed to be a 12-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the story was good. It was entertaining. I didn't watch it saying, "Oh man, this is terrible." It went along pretty well. Didn't necessarily fit into the sequence of episodes that they started the season with this three-peat episode, right? Three-parter. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It didn't fall directly in any one of those narratives. This is kind of a standalone episode almost.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't feel a continuation from, last week. It was like, this is a separate episode. This is only about this situation.
Mm-hmm. And so what it did give us was just a little bit more character growth. Like we saw, like I said, with O'Brien kind of facing his racism, when the kid is saying, I hate Cardassians, or Cardassians are bad, it makes O'Brien make his own realization, which I think is always very well and expertly written on Star Trek, is he says, well, you can't judge a whole race of people, like O'Brien's telling him that, which forces him to realize, shit, I've been judging a whole race of people, because he's trying to teach this kid this lesson. And that probably happens with parents and kids all the time, where you're trying to teach a kid a lesson and you realize you're like, shit, I need to listen to my own words.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was a good opportunity for, because you had mentioned before, we had talked about O'Brien's overt racism, right? Because he just literally, anytime he had a chance to, he would be cursing out the Cardassians, right? And this time he was actually confronted with that, even having one in his own house. Like, I remember when he looks back, he sees the kid, he's like, what the hell is he doing here? He got 3 places of dinner set. Who's having dinner with us, But it's funny with the Replimat food, you would think that it's not that difficult to get something else if you didn't like it.
That's true.
Just go walk 5 feet over there and say, I want a cheeseburger with fries.
Yeah, O'Brien's like, I just want some haggis, man. Leave me alone.
Some taters and mash or something. So I thought that was a little bit overplayed. It was like, it's not like a big deal food. Well, now I gotta go hungry because my dinner is ruined. It's not much of an inconvenience.
A lot of great quotes in this episode too. I mean, as you see, we keep quoting them, but episodes with Cardassians are always going to have great quotes. Right. One of them was Garak, who says, "I believe in coincidences. Coincidences happen every day, but I don't trust coincidences."
Nice, yeah,
it's solid.
And obviously
delivered well,
Yeah, I don't know. There probably is, but just Book of Cardassian sayings, because they always have these kinds of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Almost like the Ferengi have their rules Cardassians have their own like set of
Yeah, that's
sayings or
really interesting.
parables.
There should be a book of like great Cardassian quotes. You're right.
Yeah,
I wonder if
uh,
there is one.
I'm almost sure there is.
I remember I haven't read many of the Star Trek books and none of the comics, but by far the best the best Star Trek book I read was one called A Stitch in Time, which was actually written by Andy Robinson,
Mm.
and it was about Cardassians. Like the first half of the book was about growing up as a Cardassian, and there's Gul Dukat in there, and it shows like the hierarchy of how they develop and the kids develop and grow into military people. And the second half was what happened with Cardassia after Deep Space Nine ends and the Dominion completely ravages Cardassia. um, Garak goes back to his home world finally because he's no longer in exile because it's been destroyed, and he helps to put back the pieces of his planet. Really well written, and it really gives you a lot of insights about Cardassians, and written by Andy Robinson, which was really cool.
Oh wow, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Hmm.
So he goes into pretty good detail about Cardassian life and
About like growing up,
growing up.
growing up to be a Cardassian military, or just how Cardassian schools are, that they raise you in like a number system. I think it's something like 11 kids per group, and you're basically just numbered by how good you are, in these militant things, how, in smart and strength and whatever. And he started off as an 11 or 13 or 12 or whatever was the last one, and
Hmm.
Dukat was like a 1 or something like that. It's just kind of
Oh,
how you really. So they've been like adversaries and opponents since childhood.
oh, that's a lot of backstory
Hmm.
for what we ended up seeing on screen, which is that tension, that unspoken tension between the two characters.
Totally.
Yeah, and Marco Limo too, by the way, does a fantastic job in the documentary. I thought he was hilarious. He mentions that he wished that people had told him that how much they liked his character,
Yeah, that was shocking
and
because he was so good.
yeah, I thought it should be pretty much a given, but it's funny how in life sometimes you just got to say things that you think are obvious.
Mhm.
Sometimes you got to tell somebody you love them, even though it's pretty obvious that you love them, right?
Yeah,
Just
or
just
hate
as a
them, yeah.
reminder, or hate them.
Just let him
As a
remind him.
as
"By
a
the way,
reminder,
I don't like you still."
I don't like you, so I'm not the one to play with. Don't
But
come to me with that.
it's shocking that Mark Alimo did such a good job and did such great performances without any feedback or any positive reinforcement or anybody saying, "Hey, you're doing a great job, keep doing that," or "Add this." Like, he was just basically guessing the whole way, and nobody ever said, "By the way, you're killing it. You're crushing this."
Yeah, I think part of that is the actor as a profession as opposed to acting as a skill set. And what I mean by that is, you know, as a profession, you're making your livelihood on it. You're earning your income on it, and you're supporting yourself on it.
Mhm.
And that's one aspect. And so, having uncertainty about the professional aspect of it, of whether they're going to bring you back next week, and I think Aaron brought this up
Yeah.
for a while too, because he mentioned that he got called to Rick Berman's office. He thought he was going to get fired, and I remember that I think that plays as an advantage as far as the studios putting that kind of in the air so that the actors do feel a sense of non-security, so that they don't feel like, okay, well, now I can, have the studios cater to my every needs and open up, pay me this, pay me that, do this for me, I need this. By keeping them in this place where of uncertainty, where you don't know if you're going to get canceled, you don't know if you're going to get fired, you don't know if you're doing a good job or not. It allows the studio to have more leverage, so that nobody's going in there saying, "Hey, I need to renegotiate. Clearly, you guys love me. I'm the number one thing going on around here, and I need a trailer and I need this." you know.
Yeah.
So it actually, I mean, because I remember, as for myself, from season to season, not knowing, are they going to bring me back? what's going to happen with my character. This is my own experience, sure. And so there's, actors in general feel a sense of insecurity when it comes to the day to day of, is this going to be going on farther? Are they going to bring me back? Are they not?
Mm-hmm.
And that's so that we can all have kind of a sense of stability in our lives,
Mm-hmm. So we only have actually 30 seconds left of this show. Kind of went by quickly because there was a lot of juicy morsels to nibble on, but I wanted to hit two super quick things. One was kind of like the bow at the end of the episode was that there's that character that says, the Cardassian guy who tells Sisko, "You helped me salvage my political career." And Sisko says, "Yeah, perhaps you can use your influence to help relations between Cardassians and Bajorans," or whatever he says. And suddenly the guy's mood changes and he goes, yes, we'll see. In other words, like, we made a tiny bit of progress, but it's still going to be a long road, And the other one was at the very end when Garak and Bashir are talking. And, Bashir's kind of like asking why he never tells the truth and, whatever. And Garak says, well, I don't really need to tell the truth because whatever he says. And he says, the details are scattered like crumbs all over this table we regularly share. In other words, you can connect the dots, put them together. I've given you enough little hints to put together what the truth is, which is the closest you'll get out of a Cardassian.
That's all you're going to get out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was, you're right. There were a lot of good moments there, a lot of good quotes that could come out of that episode. The humor out of Sisko, the clever wordplay out of Garak, and the word gymnastics from Dukat. So
that's a good way to put it.
So there's so much there, and it was really, really rich with good performances in this particular episode.
Great. So we got to run, but all of you that are watching online on YouTube or on any other kind of video implement, stay tuned for the free-for-all. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be incredulous. And for those of you listening in, thank you so much for joining us. And everyone always, please remember the seventh rule. Hey everybody, welcome back to the seventh rule. This is the free-for-all. We've just begun recording, and Rex Wood, our associate producer, right under the gun, sneaks in because he's a pro and he's wearing his Captain Nog shirt straight out of Ohio, Northern Ohio.
There he is.
How you guys doing? We also have Heather Jordan, of course. We have Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, Vienne Chevalier, and Cirroc Lofton, also a very French name.
Cirroc, Jacques Cirroc.
Oh, that's close enough.
That's pretty close,
How's everybody doing today?
Fantastic.
Good.
Mm.
I'm
good.
fresh off of flying all day. So
Where'd you come from?
I came from Memphis to Rochester, back to Rochester.
Mm. From the home of barbecue to the home of...
Oh, the garbage plate.
The garbage plate.
It's a real...
What is that?
No, you have to look it up. You have to look it up. It's a meal here. It's called.
Is it like a garbage can lid filled with food?
No, it's called a garbage plate because like all the food is like kind of mashed. It's like dumped into like a bowl or styrofoam container, and it's all mixed together. And it's like usually it'd be like pieces of chicken or hamburger or hot dog even, and then they kind of throw stuff on top of it. Like you get like maybe macaroni, or you get like I guess you call them home style fries, and then you usually put like some sort of hot sauce on there. It's a really big thing here. You have to look it up.
Or as people in Memphis call it, a downgrade.
Doesn't sound that appetizing. They got to rename that thing.
Garbage plate.
I'm doing a poll here, though. I do have a question for everybody. For those of you that may have seen it, has anybody seen this new Tesla cybertruck?
I've seen the images of it. Yes.
Yeah. Anybody have any comments on there?
We'll start with Rex. He's got an opinion.
Yeah, Rex. What do you think about it?
And I thought it was really cool looking. I mean, it had some style to it. I'm not always big on those kind of things, but it actually was pretty cool. I mean, I thought it had a good futuristic look to it, and I could see driving around it. I really could. I think it would be pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. Anybody else? Michael?
I don't know that I would drive one around, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing them on the road. But I don't know that I'd want to pay $150,000 for a pickup truck.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't know if it's $150,000, but I think they're around 70. But
oh yeah,
I thought it was pretty cool that it was futuristic looking. I mean, it's
there's actually a reason for that design. I found that out.
Please share with us, Heather.
To troll us.
No. Apparently, it's made out of some super hard steel that cannot be pressed into like the press machine, which normally they use to mold like metal. And since it's made out of this super hard steel, Elon posted that it would break the press. So in order to avoid that, he said it was either redesign a new press or take away all curves out of the design. And that's what they did. So it's all straight lines because that's how they can cut the metal.
Wow.
So that's
way less interesting than I thought it would be. We're joined by our other Trek Tech, Miss Kat R. King. Kat, we're talking about Elon Musk's new pickup truck. Two quick things on that. We've got it does look like the dune buggy from Nemesis. A nice Star Trek thing. But my first impression of it was, you remember when maybe 20 years ago when video games were first starting to have like 3-dimensional like video games, and they had that shape where like an airplane was just like a triangle, and it was like really cheap, graphics. But but it was like big time at the time. You remember that, right, Kat?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So it's 8-bit graphics in real life.
But it reminded me of like a DeLorean that they decided to like smooth out the edges and like buff it up a bit. But yeah, I get Argo, but it's like a closed off version of an Argo.
Yeah, I think of Mad Max when I see it too.
Yeah, I think witness me and
like it's the perfect car for the apocalypse. There
you go.
Just cut through the masses.
Dream come true.
Wasn't it like bulletproof or something too?
It is, yes.
But it's not ball bearing proof. Hello.
Okay. Here's the Star Trek related question that we just came up with. If there were one person that you had an injury and you had to go to the hospital, and this one Star Trek character was like, "I'll take you there," and you would say, "No, I'll just Uber," because you don't want them driving. Who's the one Star Trek character that you just wouldn't feel safe with them behind the wheel? We're gonna start with. I'm gonna go with Heather.
Yeah. No, I can't say a character, but I think I could say a race.
Okay.
A Ferengi.
No, I think it's the Vidians from Voyager.
That's racist.
They harvest your body.
They would kill you on purpose, is what you're saying.
They would take you to the wrong hospital and start harvesting your organs. So I think I would say no to the Vidians.
That is brilliant. I second her.
No seconding. What do you think, Deanne?
I think I would probably say Esri.
Oh.
Everybody got
know why? I mean, do you want the explanation? Or
why Esri? That came out of nowhere.
Because she's a total neurotic mess and probably couldn't handle driving and would crash the car. And if she didn't, I would probably worsen my own injury just to get away from her.
Oh.
So you don't really have a very strong opinion about it.
I don't have strong opinions about anything. What are you talking
about? What about you, Rex?
I would, this is going to sound weird, but I said I wouldn't want Worf to do it because I really think Worf would get in road rage and I'd never make it to the hospital because somebody would pull out in front of me, and you would get mad, and you would just take off after him, and then it would be like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be taking me to the hospital. No. And by the time we got around, I would be dead in the back seat, just because he would be chasing somebody else.
No, Worf would say Klingons don't go to hospitals.
That's true. That's true. He'd say, die with honor.
Yeah, he would try to convince you. It is a good day to die. I don't want to. All right, Kat, what's your answer?
Okay, I was just thinking about this. I have to put in something a bit different. So I wouldn't trust Lwaxana Troi. No. I have a feeling that she would distract me in some way. Like, just come play on the holodeck. Ignore your pain. Life is good.
She would try to make it about her.
Yeah, or some way. Or, guilt into getting married or something.
What about you, Michael Kenyon Rosenberg?
Well, I've had a chance to think about this now for a little bit, and I would probably my go-to answer for anybody that I don't trust with something is going to be Neelix.
Oh, no. That's wrong.
Tell us why, Michael.
Why you say
why he's wrong?
Your own word.
He's a buffoon.
Well,
strong argument. What do you think, Deanne?
That's
You'd
harsh.
run out of gas on the way or something silly like that.
Deanne has an answer for that. She doesn't believe that.
Well, I would have agreed with that when I was 16, but now that I'm an adult, I think Neelix is a very genuine character.
Wow, shots fired.
Very sincere, and I think he would be very dedicated to getting you to the hospital.
He is caring. He's caring.
I will say, in his defense, I posted a poll recently on something on another production social media site, and I asked, if you had to have lunch with somebody, with one of these two people, who would you pick? And it was Neelix or Jar Jar Binks. Would you believe 96% picked Neelix? So
yes, I would believe that. Yeah.
Well, I would be the 4% that would pick Jar Jar Binks.
Wow.
Jar Jar would accidentally shoot you into space somehow, and you'd just be. I mean, he's just bumbling and fumbling. So,
well, in my opinion, the best Star Wars movie of all was Episode 1, and I'll tell you why. You guessed it, Jar Jar Binks.
I did like Jar Jar. I liked him. Everybody else hated him.
I like you very much.
On the record on this.
Like you very much.
I thought he was a nice character, but
I couldn't listen to Jar Jar for 5 seconds. Sorry, guys.
My brother
he ruined Star Wars for me, actually. Jar Jar, likey.
My opinion is we didn't get enough Jar Jar in the later movies. There was he was a little bit in the Senate. We could have had some more.
Fingers crossed. Jar Jar. Fingers crossed for next month, and fingers crossed for the Mandalorian, right?
Ah, yes.
I would not make it to the hospital because I would jump out of the car. That would be all there is to it. I'd just open the door, I'm done.
I think I still have an in-package Jar Jar figurine somewhere.
It's actually lowered in value, so you might want to get rid of it.
The $8 I paid for it, I was like,
it's at $3 now. So.
$3.
Well, it brings us to you now. What's your character that you would say, sorry, I'll just walk to the hospital?
I initially thought of Ferengi. I would think Quark. I wouldn't want Quark in his neurotic sense, state, driving me anywhere, because I just don't feel like he has the focus capability in that moment. But Geordi was another person that I thought of. Yeah, because I just don't trust the guy with a visor.
What? Oh, yeah, vision.
Yeah, I just don't know.
But if you were going to crash the car, he'd be able to barrel roll out of the car like he would always do.
Once again, leaving me behind. So, I think, one of those two.
He'd have a coolant leak.
I could see not having Quark only because he would want to charge you. You would be charged a lot of money. So where's your
it's
money
by the
cover,
mile, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. Excellent point. Yeah. I just thought of mine. Thank goodness you guys bought me enough time. Definitely, it would be. I hate to say it because it's one of my favorite characters.
Oh, no.
William T. Riker.
What?
Why you say that?
He wouldn't be able to get in the car. You can't straddle the seats when you try to get in. He'd spend all day just trying to get into the seat.
Terrible.
And I would just lose my arm or whatever the problem is. So it would have to be.
Pretty sure he sat normally inside the shuttle.
He didn't always sit like that. Like, it's not how he sat every single time, you know. It's just
he sat normally on the bridge.
He was
Who's the favorite of the doctors in the Star Trek universe?
Oh, EMH.
EMH,
down,
EMH?
Yeah, the Bob Picardo.
He's the number one of all the doctors of all the shows.
What about you, Rex?
Well, you know, I'm always going to go for McCoy just because of being an older fan. I'm always going to go for McCoy. I think with his older attitude and things that he does, I would put McCoy before the rest of them because he's going to have a lot of those home remedies, you know, that he's found throughout the years. So I'm a big McCoy fan.
Homeopathic stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
he just needs some ginseng and lemon juice.
Right. He might have been drinking a little bit before he worked on me, but you know what? That's okay.
Well, I think we all learned something today. We're better for it.
Did we? Did we really?
Yeah. Yeah, we learned that you guys are wrong about William Riker. He would have not been able to get in the car, you nerds. You're going to be like, episode 112, you could clearly see that he sat next to Guinan like a normal human. But anyway, thank you all for joining us. Vianne, thank you for, you know, being the adult in the room when we had all our shenanigans. And Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, thank you very much.
For being the child in the room.
Yes, thank you.
Rex Wood, thank you very much for being the associate producer in the room.
Thank you.
All right.
Heather and Kat, thank you for being the smart people in the room. Cirroc, thank you for being
the famous one in the room.
You know what's funny, because I thought McCoy would be McCoy was the favorite of the Star Treks. But when you guys said Picardo, I thought that was interesting. That was new for me to hear.
He had some great storylines, like the development, and then you know, I think that maybe with Picardo, they really, you know, they really looked into the medicine, like how they figure things out. I think more like with some of the older episodes, it was just like, oh, somebody's leg's falling off, we have to fix it. He was like really going in depth, like, you know, he's like doing research and growing, and you know, they encountered new diseases that they had never seen before, so they had to solve that. So I think that that's a really good.
That's the reasons.
And he was so damn charming. I think that's what it was. He was so charming. I like.
I think it should be Bob, because you guys remember that episode of The Golden Girls, the one that he guest starred on as a doctor with a terrible bedside manner.
No.
Okay, yeah. So Bob Picardo was on The Golden Girls, and he played a doctor with a terrible bedside manner. And I feel like someone was watching that in syndication one day and said, "Hey, let's get Bob Picardo to do the doctor on Voyager." And then, bam, we got this amazing, talented, like McCoy figure 2.0, kind of a, you know, crotchety, curmudgeonly character that kind of sort of grew on you as it went along, and then grew out of that.
Crotchety, that's what I would like to be defined as.
You're working on it. You're
Thank you very much.
It doesn't mean what you think it means, Cirroc.
oh, never mind. Oh, never mind that.
But anyway, for all the smart people in the room.
Sorry about that, Rex. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. Happy Thanksgiving for those of you that celebrate.
Oh yeah. Happy holiday.
Happy Tofurkey Day.
Yes.
Oh, do we have man, I'm not alone here. That's right. We got Michael and Vianne that are on my side here.
You're not going to have a what is it called? A turducken?
I'm not having a turkey this year.
That's okay.
Turducken. There it is. That's what it is.
We're having a Gardain roast, which is superior to tofurkey in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's good stuff.
It's all about the pies for me. All about the pies.
Pie.
Desserts.
Yep, that's right. Pecan.
It's chocolate
disgusted by this.
No, I'm not.
You can't be disgusted by pies.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm all about the pies. I'm all about the turkey. Let me tell you, I'm all about all of it. So
I love the mashed potatoes and gravy. That's the best part.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for wearing the Captain Nog Forever shirt, by the way, Rex. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Got it. Really excited that I've got it now. So.
Yeah.
Well,
all right, guys.
That's about it. Thank you all for joining us. And those of you at home, always remember the 7th rule.